Hey Void, how you doing? So, continuing my trek back through the Shutter's backlog. Anyway, so often when Shutter acquires a movie, they'll pick up a bunch of things pretty simultaneously that are fitting. So often they'll grab a movie and a couple of its sequels, or several things by the same director or production company, which seems to be what I'm wading through right about now. Since yesterday, was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago. I reviewed Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. And there's a couple more Lucio Fulci ones right there, so I'm moving right on into them. So, today I've got The House by the Cemetery, which was a 1981, and it's technically a follow-up to The Beyond. It's considered the third in his Gates of Hell trilogy, but this one for me just they don't seem to mention the Gates of Hell. It seems a bit I can see it having a similar style, but it doesn't really feel like a sequel. So I was right in that I think I can watch those in pretty much any order. Now, having really enjoyed The Beyond, I was buckled in and ready to give a similar glowing review to House by the Cemetery, which this one actually only has one alternate title compared to The Beyond's several, and that is Zombie Hell House. Anyway, I was ready to give it a good review. I don't think I can give it as good of a review, and that's a shame. This one really wasn't doing it for me. There's a lot of little factors that kind of added up to not much, and that's kind of the problem here. This one's sort of an early Italian version. Then, well, I guess not early. This is either an Italian version of like the Amityville Horror or Haunting in Connecticut. It'd kind of be the feel I got from this one. But I think Amityville Horror is kind of one, and I'll be honest, the original Amityville Horror, I didn't really like either. So maybe that's my problem here. That's not entirely my problem here. Bob is my problem here. We'll get to Bob in a bit. Okay. So, house by the cemetery. A family moves into a house by a cemetery. There's your basic plot. So, there's a little bit more to it, and I'll give it credit for that. The we got the main character, I guess, would be Norman Boyle, who's a researcher, picking up for his predecessor, who was researching. I don't know if they ever really say exactly what he's researching, but something about the folklore of the area or the. It's kind of unclear actually what he was researching. But he suddenly committed suicide and murdered his lover, and now our boy Norman's moving in to pick up his research because it's important research for the school, museum, wherever they're from. So, takes his family out and is going to be working 6 months, and they end up staying in the same house that his predecessor stayed in. And as he goes along, he discovers his predecessor had began researching something different, and particularly pulling up a bunch of death accounts, and so he starts trying to figure out what drove his predecessor to this. Particularly as he seems to be investigating Dr. Freudstein, who's lived in the house prior. Then they hire a babysitter, who's a little creepy, and all the while there's this strange girl who keeps talking to the Norman and his wife Lucy's kid, Bob. And no one else sees her, and she seems to be at first talking to them through a picture, and then she shows up, and he's like, "I told you not to come." Anyway, now as creepy happenings start going on, mostly things that just unsettle the Lucy and Bob, while the husband's busy running around researching and starting to realize that There may be something very wrong with the house they're staying in. Okay. Particularly with the, I'll just spoil this one a little bit, the crazed, still living Dr. Freudstein, who's in their basement looking to replace parts of him with fresher tissue. Alright, it's okay. Gore effects are still good. I was surprised, though, there's no eye gouging, which Fulci is infamous for. But other than the effects and the soundtrack, I can't really speak too highly of this one. The pacing is slower and not a lot happens, and yet things seem to escalate oddly quickly. My example is, so far, like, the house really hasn't had many problems other than them being unable to get into the basement, so they finally pry open the basement. They go down in there, and Norman and Lucy are attacked by a bat. And after that, that's what makes them decide, so we have to move. Really? Just a stray bat in the basement? I haven't even seen anything creepy yet. Alright. Well, a thing that was working for me was the little girl, May. She was decently creepy and mysterious. I kind of liked her being there trying to warn Bob away. It's kind of obvious who she is and who she's supposed to be, so particularly with her mother trying to say it's time to go, beckoning behind her, that was working okay. Wasn't working was Bob. Now, this movie is dubbed from Italian, but both Bob and May's voices are the worst dubbing out there. Their voices do not match at all, and are... May has this strange pseudo-British accent that just makes her sound like a really pompous little girl, and her tone shifts wildly, but I could deal with her. I couldn't deal with Bob. His voice, he was dubbed over by a much older woman, and part of him, the problem with him is the voice, and it is obnoxious, and it's hard to deal with, and Bob is a pivotal character through a lot of the movies, so there's a lot of Bob. But Bob also's decisions are some of the stupidest, even amongst horror movie kids, and I've seen a lot of stupid horror movie kids. The line, I usually drop like a random line that stuck out to me down in the description, so this was, his line is the one I'm dropping down there, and oh my god. So the part of him that really got me wanting to shake this kid was about midway through, actually getting towards the climax, where just before the babysitter was tracked, then heard some noises, particularly some whining, so she thought, okay, is something wrong with Bob, and went to go check the basement. She gets locked in the basement and sees something coming after her and is screaming her head off. That's a pun later, you'll see. Anyway, Bob says, overhears, and it's like, oh, come on, Yogi, to his family. We have to go save Anne. And just begins slowly just picking up a few things, like a flashlight, calmly goes over, grabs a toy gun, and just slowly makes his way down there. So I was like, first, like, come on, she's yelling like that. You hurry, kid. Anyway, Anne gets her head ripped off, and the kid sees something down there, or gets grabbed by something down there. Well, first he goes down, sees her head roll down the stairs, gets grabbed by the monster, manages to get away enough, gets the monster's door, gets his arm caught in the door, something's holding him, but finally gets away. That's not the dumb part. So, he tries to tell his mother that Anne's dead, which the mother does at first, like, okay, let's go take a look. Doesn't find her dead body. So, she assumes that Bob's just making things up. So later on, that night, Bob sneaks downstairs and opens the basement door. And calls out, Anne, Mom says you're not dead. Is that right? Or is that true? And begins calling for Anne going down the stairs, despite having been attacked by a monster down there, and he's walking right into it. Which pretty much sets up the climax for both him and his mother being trapped down there. Actually, no, he gets trapped down there, then the whole family gets drawn down there and hunted by Freudstein. So, he was insufferable. But the tone, it still feels like a full G. It's just a bit lackluster. I'm only giving this one 4 MacGuffins. I wanted to like it a lot more. Maybe I'm being a bit harder on it because the Beyond kind of pumped me up, but this one just wasn't doing it. Which is a shame. So, 4 stars for House by the Cemetery. Alright, well, I've got one more full chew one coming up, so we'll see how we do there.